you so much for having me. My name is Tisha Saunders. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I'm honored to be here tonight. This room is filled with love, and I'm excited to learn more about the Speak Up program. And it sounds like I'm in alignment and in the right place.
That's right.
So before I get started with more about me, I just want to give some trigger warnings that I am sharing my story. My story includes trauma and violence and homelessness. So just take the space that you need for yourself as I share my story. So I'm the daughter of an African American and a Jamaican, and I've experienced homelessness throughout my life. Though as a child, I really didn't understand that it was homelessness because it didn't look how it appeared in the media. It didn't look like it was street-based. But my family was without housing for several times, and we'd stay with an aunt here and there. But we made it through. We were low income and lived in Section 8 housing, but we had a community. We stayed and played outside until the street lights came on. I had a quality education, and I really didn't understand the effects of my experiences living in poverty until I was an adult. Unfortunately, I did have an abusive household, so I was placed into foster care when I was in high school, and that was one of my first times that I experienced homelessness or experienced being somewhere where I didn't feel at home. I felt like I was displaced. I went from being an honors student to being in jeopardy of not graduating high school. Thankfully, I did graduate high school, and I was able to go off to college. As a first-generation college student who had just exited foster care or just reunited with my family, I really didn't understand the importance of education, or I lost my passion for education. And after 2 years of taking classes and failing them, my college was like, it's time for us to break up. You gotta leave. So I was expelled. And I said, you know what? I'm just gonna work retail. I'm a hard worker. I'm gonna become a manager. I'm gonna make it in life. I threw my education to the side. I didn't see the importance of it. But I shortly realized that wasn't a reality for me. I was couch surfing. I didn't see it as homelessness because I was staying with my homegirl. She let me sleep on her couch. But it was homelessness. And when times got tough, I had to return home to my family in Compton. And that was a lot of stress. It was very difficult for me. And I actually ended up having a mental health crisis. I checked myself into a hospital. I didn't have anywhere to go, and I thought I was crazy. But after being there a couple of days, I said, maybe this ain't for me. I think we need to separate. And I was released, and I was sent back home, and I started to realize that it was my environment that I was in that I couldn't thrive in. I needed to get away from that. And one of my college friends actually said, well, you can come stay with me and my family in Simi Valley. And I don't know if y'all know about Simi Valley, but going from Compton to Simi Valley, it was weird. It was weird. It was exciting. They didn't lock their doors at the time. They do now, but it's not because of me. I'm just saying that, okay? All right. But it was an experience to be welcomed into a family home. I say they are my adopted family, though we didn't officially sign any paperwork. They took me into their home and they said, you know, we just want you to go to school. We want you to do well for yourself and be an upstanding person. And at that time, I had learned that I could just tell people what I thought they wanted to know. So I said, yeah, I'm going back to school. I went back for a semester, got my little rent, and I dipped out and started working several odds and ends jobs. And through a chance encounter, became a nanny. And it was then that I discovered I love working with children. And when it comes to children, children are a direct reflection of their environment. Yes, there's nature, but a lot of it is also nurture, and they reflect the environments that they're in. And I said, I want to learn more about how children grow up, and I want to be an early childhood educator. So I went back to school. I think this was the third time. Yeah, I went back to school the third time, and this time it stuck. I had professors who really embraced me and really highlighted that it's not just about textbook knowledge. It's really important to apply what you are learning in school. And so some of the things that I learned in school was, for example, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if you're up the hierarchy and your needs are met more and more, you become a more self-fulfilled person. My environment, my professors really encouraged me to get involved. So I really took off and became involved in student government. I really excelled. I was working 3 jobs while going to community college, and I became a student leader. And there came a point in time where I had to balance out student leadership with work. So I quit nannying, I stopped working at my retail job. People thought I was crazy, I'm not saying that I wasn't, but they say, well, how are you gonna survive? How are you gonna make it? I'm not surviving on this, not even minimum wage, I'm not surviving right now, and y'all don't understand that. But I really thrive as a student leader. Unfortunately, due to some family relations, I was kicked out of my home. And again, I found myself homeless. But this time, I was empowered, and I decided to push through, finish school, while sleeping in my car. I was a student leader. I was basically the valedictorian at my community college, and graduated and was going to transfer. Oh, thank you. Yeah. There's a lot of ebbs and flows here, so be prepared. Clap, stop, clap, okay? So this is 2016, I'm on top of the world, I graduated. My family's coming back my biological family is coming back into my life, and I'm ready to transfer. And one of my family members says, well, you can come live with me and rent a room. And I said, okay, maybe we're turning a new leaf. I'll come live with you, and I'll go to Dominguez Hills, and things will be okay. I'll work on my family relations. About a month into moving into the home, I was asked to leave. Again, I found myself homeless. I had to return to my family home, which was, a lot of pain and strife. And shortly after moving to my family home, my stepfather was murdered. It was a really hard time for me, a lot of trauma, and I decided that I couldn't stay in the home and be a healthy person. So I can remember as clear as day that on the night I decided to pack my stuff in my car. I would drive around for hours, I think. And something led me to my high school. And I drove near my high school, I drove to a park, and I said, this seems like a safe place to pull up and park. It's a park. I want to be somewhere safe. 30 minutes after dozing off, I woke up to people knocking on my window. I woke up to being surrounded by 3 squad cars with law enforcement at my window telling me that I needed to leave. I was scared, and I said, well, where can I go? They couldn't tell me where I could go sleep in my car. They just told me that I needed to leave. I made it through my first semester at Dominguez Hills after trying to struggle and prioritize trying to find housing or focus on my school. Mind you, this is college 4.0 at this time. This is the 4th time I'm trying college. So I knew I had to get my stuff together because there wouldn't be any more chances for me. So I stopped focusing on trying to get housing and just said, you know what, things will work out. I'm a good person. I was reunited with my siblings and ended up getting housing for the rest of the semester. And one of the last days of the semester, I was connected with this program or this organization called the National Foster Youth Institute. And they're an organization focused on empowering current and former foster youth to share their stories, to advocate for the transformation of the child welfare system. And in this program, I met with youth from throughout the United States who were current and former foster youth who were fighting for change. And I said to myself, well, who am I to just sit on my laurels and not be amped up and not fight for change when these youth from throughout the nation are doing just that? So I got involved on my campus. I became a student leader again. I got involved in the community. I became an activist with Black Lives Matter. I started meeting with our local politicians. I started advocating for change. And I started to realize that policy is where change happens, either policy implementation or policy creation. And so I became an outstanding community advocate. I can't do anything small, so I did too much. And had the time of my life. But unfortunately, I became the victim of gun violence on August 9, 2017. And instead of just giving up, I knew my options were low. If I didn't finish school, I would be homeless again. But thankfully, I had community. I had community members, the organizations I was a part of that really lifted me up and supported me. So I once again continue to be active, definitely focused on my own self-sustainability and my own wellness. And that shifted my mindset to focus on activism within policy and local government.
All right.
And around the time I graduated, I realized that we don't pay our childhood educators well, and I didn't want poverty to be the rest of my story for the rest of my life. So I started to get in policy. I did a fellowship at LA City Hall, which you heard about, and at LASA. And while I was there, I heard some really great policies being created, but I was really confused because we have so many great policies, then why does it look like, African Americans represent 8% of the population, but we're about 40% of those experiencing homelessness? There has to be a disconnect. So from that point, I knew that I wanted to be involved in implementation and I wanted to go to the front lines.
Amen.
So since 2019, I've been working on the front lines. I was a live-in resident coordinator, running a transitional home, and now I am the resident manager for a permanent supportive housing program.
All right.
And so I'm not only doing the work, but I'm a part of a community of folks who have lived experience, who have transitioned out of homelessness, but it's not just a job, it's a part of a community.
All right.
They learn and we learn together.
All right.
And that's how we transform and end homelessness.
All right.
So it's really important that we support those with lived experience, and it's important that those with lived experience are given the mic, given the time to participate, and are centered in these movements and are centered in the work to transform our systems. Because if we're not at the table, then we're on the menu.
Well,
and we really have to be supported in changing. And I just want to uplift, a lot of people think my resilience is because of me, but it's because I'm a part of a village.
That's right.
So when I show up because I'm happy to be here with you all. So I'm getting the stop sign, but I will